everybody. I'd like to go ahead and call to order the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway. It's Thursday, August 26, 2021. It's approximately 1:03 p.m. We are here at the Carson City Community Center, Robert Bob Kroll Boardroom. Allison, would you mind doing a roll call for us, please? Oh, you can. We'll mark him present when Clay arrives, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Clay Mitchell? Not present?
We'll mark him present when he arrives.
When he
in just a
arrives.
few minutes. Yep.
Denny Dotson?
Here.
David Peterson?
Present.
Stephanie Hicks? Here. Jim Wells?
All right, we have a quorum. All right, if I could get everybody to stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All right, thank you, everybody. At this time, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of this public body. Any public comment in the room? I do not see anybody. Do we have anybody on the phone?
We do not have any callers on the line at this time.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 5 for possible action. Approval of minutes of the July 22nd, 2021 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look over the agenda minutes in the packet? Any edits or changes, or anybody want to see anything happen with these? Oh, go ahead.
I usually never comment on minutes, but I've actually got a couple changes here.
Okay.
Just they're minor typo nomenclatures.
Okay.
On the engineer's report, I forget exactly which page that is, but the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph, it should read Form 55 versus Form 550, safety report.
Form 55, okay.
And in the next paragraph, gave order to a new single, it should be signal versus single arm for Lanham Road crossing.
SIGNAL, signal.
Signal.
Single signal arm?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
Is
It's
it
a tongue twister.
Yeah, or just a signal arm?
Signal. Yeah,
Signal.
signal should be replaced, single.
Okay.
Okay. Just the one
It's
single
just
correction.
one.
And the last paragraph, although I'd much like it to be raining, it was actually a high rail inspection, not a high rain inspection.
High rain, okay.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay, hi, thank you, Ken, appreciate that. Any other changes? If I could get a motion then on the minutes, that would be super. Go ahead, Jim.
This is Commissioner Wells. I'll move to approve the minutes for the July 22nd, 2021 meeting.
With the changes noted? Great, okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Danny, and I will second that motion.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Great, you guys. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda, items 6 and 7. So item 6 is a discussion and possible action regarding the approval of the V&T Statement of Accounts payable checks paid July 1 through 31, 2021. And agenda item number 7 is discussion and possible action regarding approval of the adjusted V&T fiscal 21-22 budget report period ending July 31st, 2021. Does anybody want to have anything pulled off of the consent?
Mr. Chair, I had a couple questions on item number 7.
Okay. Do you want to do we want to approve 6, or do you mind if we
can approve 6.
We can approve 6?
Sure.
Okay. Great. So with that, we will pull number 7. So if I could get a motion to approve agenda item number 6, please.
I'll approve item number 6 on the consent agenda for today's agenda.
Thank you, Denny. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, Stephanie Hicks, second.
Thank you, Stephanie. We have a motion and a second to approve agenda item number 6 on the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we will go ahead under agenda item number 8. And at this time, we will talk through number 7, which again, for the record, is the adjusted V&T fiscal 21-22 budget report, period ending July 31st, 2021. The V&T Commission will review a comparative statement of adjusted revenue totaling $92,768.32, expenses totaling $3,550.12, and make a determination whether they approve of the report. And Denny, you had a couple of questions. And for the record, if we could mark Commissioner Mitchell present, that would be super. Hi, Clay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. One, I see we got it matched up here with Jim's request, so that's great. I like that. That was to happen faster than I would normally does, so kudos to you guys. A couple questions on revenue. First of all, this is week period ending 7/31, so it's basically our first month of the fiscal year. Obviously, we didn't have any ticket sales because we didn't have any sales coming in. My question, I wanted to confirm this, and I don't remember, forgive me, the 65, is that the FEMA? 65,000 under miscellaneous?
So that I have a question or a comment on that. So I actually think that's the $65,000 from us, but for fiscal 21 from June.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that needs to be put back into last fiscal year. So that's the additional funds, right, that come from Visit Carson City if we have the dollars, based on everything with the bond payments and all that. So that was our fiscal. I don't know about the $757.20, but our payment was exactly $65,000.
That is the FEMA dollars, the 700 and,
50, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think if it was the tax, it would come under what we would call the tourism tax. That's probably where that number would come under.
Yeah.
From Carson as well as Story County.
Yep.
So, okay, no, that's cool. Okay, so really my question and reason for pulling this was more the expenses. I noticed on 2 items, professional services matched up to what we paid in receivables and track, but it's only $989. Did we not pay for Miss Allison, Mr. Cador, or Mr. Gabe in the month of July?
So those, I think, are on the, I think you guys cut checks every other week or something like that.
So they
They
just
are-
missed,
They are, I think, on
okay.
August 2nd or August 8th.
So they may be
or something
double up
like that.
depending on how the vouchers fall in the next period.
Yeah, and thanks to Lindsay and Jennifer for making these. This is way easier for me to follow and go
Sure,
going
okay.
forward. But yeah, it does mean that sometimes we'll miss
And it-
a check until next month.
It happens. Nope, I totally get it. Okay, that's
And
really just,
I do believe because of the end of the fiscal as well, so we were all asked to get in our 21 fiscal in, so it would have been put into the previous fiscal year.
good
Any
enough.
checks cut to us in that month.
So
Yeah,
the
the
only-
60,000 for sure should go back to FY21.
Right.
Just to clarify, 65, right? For
Or 65.
Our whole payment, yeah.
Yes, 65. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we'll end up making the same payment, hypothetically, all holds with occupancy tax, but we would make that in June next year. So you're right, we'll have to figure out how do we get that back into the correct fiscal year. Are we okay with, I know there's the timing about the every other, check every 2 weeks, but are we okay? Because technically, right, I suppose when we see August, those won't actually be the expenditures. In terms of billing, it would have been for July and probably August, but it's going to look like it's
It's going
all
to be off a little
August,
bit,
but
so
I don't know how to resolve
I'll leave it up to the
that.
treasurer. I mean, if he wants to go every other month on some of these reports to make it a little more true, I don't know if that would work, but it's up to the board. I understand that because I deal with these forms
Sure.
daily or weekly, so, but it's up to the board on how they want to see it.
Yeah, yeah. I know that the timing with the checks and the approval process, sometimes you're just missing those cutoff dates for the city to get them paid on a check run. So yeah, we can move this report to a quarterly if we wanted to. Maybe that makes more sense than approving it every month.
The other thing to consider, Jim, is it's so seasonal. We do so much early in the year or late in the year or not at the, so it takes some time for it all to true up.
Yeah.
If you look at the actual revenue and the expenses here, one would say, oh my gosh, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
We know there's ticket sales coming, we know there's stuff coming, but if you just looked at it as is, it doesn't hold a lot of weight. You have to know all the stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, especially with July and everything kind of starting late, and technically that rail bike, I think they're paying in arrears too, so that's technically June money as well. And I know that Story County, I think, uses a little bit different of a cutoff than the state uses, because I know the state processes transactions all the way to the end of this month, but I think Story County has an earlier cutoff. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, but it is revenue that is associated with a prior year.
Well, maybe we should explore the idea of, if you like the quarterly, Jim, we could have at our October meeting, first quarter, and see how it clears out, so, okay. Yeah, that works for me. I don't have an issue with that. Denny, sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I'm done.
Any
That's it.
other questions on number 7, the 22 budget report? Okay, seeing none, if I could get a motion to, go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you. Yes, I move to approve the adjusted fiscal year 22 budget report as presented through July 2021.
Thank you, Stephanie, for that motion. Do I have a second?
This is Denny, and I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Denny. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. That's great. Thank you. All right. With that, we'll go ahead to agenda item number 9 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding approval of contract number FY22-C001 with Casey Nealon Incorporated to provide external audit services for a total not to exceed amount of $80,945. Suzanne is here from Casey Nealon. If there are any questions, I just need to read a quick disclosure, though, before we have any further discussion. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. I'm the executive director of the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority. The Culture and Tourism Authority has contracted with Casey Nealon to provide services similar to those proposed in this agenda item. While I make this disclosure, NRS 281A.420 requires abstention only in clear cases. I do not have any commitments to Casey Nealon in a private capacity, nor do I have a personal pecuniary interest in any Casey Nealon contract. I do not believe that my judgment is materially affected by the Culture and Tourism Authority contract. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter. So just wanted to put that in the record. So with that, are there any questions about the contract? I want to thank Jim and Jennifer for being our tandem duo here to review the proposals and to move this recommendation forward for contracting with Casey Nealon. So thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jennifer, for assisting us with this process. So if there are any questions, happy to open it up at this time. Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
Just a little bit about the statement of qualifications. There were 2 firms that submitted responses to the statement of qualifications, and then after the review of the 2 proposals, we selected to move forward with Casey Nealon based on the fact that they could do the work, as well as the fact that their fees were substantially lower than the second responsible bidder. And so that's kind of the reason. I know there was a couple of comments from internally among us about whether or not there were sufficient hours based on what you see in the the report or the response to the statement of qualifications. And I did have a conversation with Suzanne, and we do believe that there are enough hours in there that they will be able to meet the responsibilities within those hours. So, and that's why we asked Suzanne to be here today, so she could comment on their thoughts on the proposal.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim or for Suzanne? Okay, well, great. You got off easy, Suzanne. Gosh darn it. I thought they were going to ask you something about GASB 32 or something. Yeah, you were. Gee whiz. All right, well, with that, I'd be happy to entertain a motion. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
I move to approve the contract for external audit services by Casey Nealon through December 21st, 2025.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Could I get a second, please?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Clay. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. This is exciting. Never thought I'd be excited about an audit and a contract to do audits for multiple years. So thank you, Suzanne. We really look forward to working with you. So thank you again. Yeah, of course. Thank you. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 10 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding the approval of lease number FY22-L001 with Virginia and Truckee Railroad Company Incorporated for the purpose of the sale of goods and services for a total not to exceed amount of $1,080.26. This is the approval for the leasing retail space at the Eastgate Depot, ticketing office, gift shop by the Virginia and Truckee Railroad Company Incorporated through January 31st, 2022. Any questions? Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you. I'd forwarded some questions to Allison and David. I think I'd be remiss in not bringing up a couple of terms that are missing from this document. Being the real property manager for the city, there's just some things we have in our standard template that I think is to the commission's benefit, but also to the lessee's benefit that we include in the agreement. And those items are, first of all, there's not an actual termination clause. There's an opportunity to terminate before the renewal period, but if something were to happen outside of that cycle, there's not a termination clause. We also don't talk about any repairs and maintenance. Typically, there's a force majeure clause, and then the other one that I noted was usually we have a clause regarding personal property. So I understand the importance of getting this going, and so I don't want to delay that. What I would request, my proposal is to remove the automatic renewal clause under renewal terms on the second page of the lease. And put an end date at the end of this season so that we have an opportunity to revisit this and just kind of come up with a template of what we would consider standard terms and conditions. That way we can move forward this season. There's not an issue with that, but I think it just clarifies some things for both parties.
But no, I think those are excellent suggestions for the long term, and I appreciate your willingness to sort of carve something out to get us through this season. So, Stephanie, you would like to remove the renewal term section, but are you okay with the term where it says the lease term will begin on August 26, 2021 and will terminate on January 31st, 2022?
I think if we could change that to, yes, no, that's fine. 22 is fine. Because then that would actually be the term. If we remove the renewal terms, then there's just no automatic renewal. And what that does is it gives us an opportunity to work on it for the next year and put some of those just standard things in there. I'm glad to share the city's template, but we can also go out. When I started as real property manager, one of our supervisors at the time was a commercial realtor. So he provided me some just lease commercial lease templates, retail lease templates, and I think it'd just be like we did with our contracts to come up with a nice standard template. I think that would be helpful to everybody.
That sounds very reasonable. I think that's a great suggestion. Does anyone have a comment or any other?
Yeah, I just have one comment. Allison, is the $208 consistent with what we had worked out with Tom in the past? I know it wasn't very much, but I don't remember that number.
It's the exact number that we've
Is
had
it?
from the
Okay.
past, yeah.
The 08 threw me, so, but okay.
And then it's prorated, just full transparency, for the last 5 days of August. So,
Correct.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's why it's an even weirder amount with the 26 cents, so.
All good.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I may ask just for context, is this lease for the entirety of the gift shop space? I haven't been inside the depot, and so just help me understand a little bit about kind of the relationship between what space it is, how it interacts with the rest of the ticketing office, so on and so forth.
Allison's gonna.
Yeah, so Allison Bolton, I'll respond to that. It is going to be a shared space. So when you enter the ticketing side to the left, there is a counter that our team will be functioning out of to handle tickets. And then that would be the northeast side of the building is where this lease is going to include. There's an additional front room that we currently have Polar Express Retail living in. So it's just that north and that northeast side of the building. Additionally, there is offices to the west that is for our team as well.
Okay. And what's the relationship to the Polar Express Retail? Is that intermixed? Is that sold through with our staff actually conducting transactions? Just help me understand the relationship between the two, if you would.
It's separate. So we will be doing, through the railway, we will be doing all the Polar Express retail. We've inventoried everything that we've already purchased in the past, as far back as probably 2018, and then done an additional purchase for this year's Polar. We will be selling that. They will not be. So, and the space in which we will be selling Polar Express is actually in the Still building, not in the ticketing side.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay, for those questions. Allison, quick question. I know yesterday, I think you were measuring the space that would be in this particular lease. Did you get a rough square footage? Because I'm thinking we should probably add that in, if you know.
In full transparency, I do not have that number
Okay.
off the top of my head, but it is something that I can have tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I'm thinking we should at least, you're right, acknowledge the combined square
Right.
footage.
Or even if you had a little sketch to attach as an exhibit. But I think if you at least say that it's a certain, it's this amount of square footage of this building, that, again, I think it just makes it more clear what the request is.
I actually love the idea of a sketch. It's easy for us to do and what we use for our events to kind of map the area, and we can label their space, our space, et cetera.
Great.
Could we just do that, Mike, like an Exhibit A? And could we just do that as like an Exhibit A, attach it to the lease itself, and then that diagram would represent the two areas? Okay, I like that.
Yeah, it's quick, easy.
Simple.
We can do that.
Try to make it easy here, if possible. Okay, any further questions?
No further questions, but I do want to speak in support of Stephanie's suggestion. I think those definitely make it a stronger document, and
Yeah.
I'm very supportive of allowing it to go forward now, but setting up for a more complete approach in the future.
Yep, I think that's brilliant, so I love it. Okay, if there's no further discussion, I would be happy to entertain a motion for this particular lease. Anybody wants to? Sure, yeah, good, give it a whirl.
Okay, I move to approve leasing retail space at the Eastgate Depot Ticketing Office Gift Shop by Virginia and Truckee Railroad Company Incorporated through January 31st, 2022, with the removal of the renewal terms section on the second page of the lease agreement.
And
The addition.
Oh, and the addition of the exhibit or approximate square footage of the area.
beautiful.
Good
Thank you.
motion. I'll second that motion.
Yeah, you will. That's what I'm talking about. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thanks, everybody. That's great. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 11 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding the approval of lease number FY22-L002 with Virginia and Truckee Railroad Company Incorporated for the use of locomotive number 18 for a total not to exceed amount of $20,000. And this one would run through, right now as it stands, December 31st, 2022. And the idea there, in talking with Clay, when we went up and met with Tom, is to have it run through the existing operating agreement. So we're not back here in a few months, looking at doing this again, was the idea behind that. So do you want to say anything, Clay? If you wanted to add anything, please.
No, I'm well, no, and then I proceed to say something. Sorry. The smoke's getting to me.
That's like a
little bit.
maybe.
Yeah, a good firm maybe. I think the only thing that that's kind of been rattling around in my head, I think it's fairly straightforward for now and for the need that we have at this point. I think it gets us where we need to go. One of the things that I think is, as I look at this piece of the big picture that's a little bit ambiguous, is that when we look at kind of all of the terms of operation and usage of this piece of equipment, some of them lie in this document and some of them really lie in the operating agreement. And to consider each of them separately and not together is maybe not the most effective way to get that whole picture. And so while I'm definitely in favor of getting this in place, I think that it makes sense to get us up and running and then to have a plan to really look at, and whether that means duplicating terms on both sides or whether that means cleaning it up in a way where we make sure that there's concurrence between them, but also that we get the big picture and we make sure that there's equity, fairness, however that looks, for a longer term agreement, I think is preferable as we go forward. I think it just makes it a clearer approach to what is a little bit of a convoluted situation with usage of equipment. So that's all I have to say.
I couldn't agree with you more. And now I'm thinking you were listening in on my conversations that I was having with myself. So yeah, no, I think you're right, because with some of the proposed changes that were coming back, it was almost like they were changes that really should have been in the operating agreement, not in this agreement for leasing the locomotive. And so it was causing me some concern too, just
Yeah.
the back and forth with Mike and Ryan on Tom's side in the last week and a half. So I would agree, like long-term, looking forward post, December next year, I think you're right. It would be neat if both of these could be a part of a single agreement. So
And to be clear, I think those conversations can start maybe after this season wraps up. So we have a direction where we're going. We shouldn't wait till the end of 2022.
Oh God, no.
And certainly there were some things that Tom expressed that he'd like to see addressed that are not necessarily addressed in here, but maybe some restructuring, because it's a big piece of equipment, takes up a lot of room, and he's looking at having to reconfigure his space to be able to adequately service his other rolling stock, and so that's something to take into account. And again, if there needs to be some sort of square truing it up to make sure that there remains a good, reasonable, equitable agreement, then that's something that we'll want to take a look at in a holistic fashion. So
I agree, because before we know it, the end of next year will be here. So I think this gives us a nice lead time to get ourselves positioned for January 1st, 2023 for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I like
Mr.
that.
Chairman, there's a comment.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Gabe, yeah, come on out. Oh, you'll have to, yep. My apologies. I wasn't looking that far left.
Talking about this is Gabe Williman, talking about some of Tom's rolling stock, making space for it. He does store his rolling stock in our sidings as well. So that's another aspect of the whole situation. So it's just one of those things.
Absolutely.
I figure, I don't know if you guys knew that, so I figured I'd bring it up.
That's up top, right? Yeah.
Up top at Donovan and
Donovan's.
sometimes at Scales.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 of our 4 sightings.
Okay.
That's definitely something that should be factored into the equation for sure. I mean, certainly a steam locomotive has unique needs for both storage and servicing
Yeah.
that, I mean, you need a pit and,
Yep.
not a lot of options there, but covered storage is certainly, something that I think Tom would like to expand and would be a good idea, especially for these valuable older pieces.
Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, Denny. Yeah.
I do absolutely agree with Clay's and your sentiments as far as thinking a little bit, further out. But on this exact topic, on page 6, number 17, that I had it flagged as a watch out, is the return of the 18. The way it's worded is at the end of this agreement, that's December 31st. That's a pretty cold day in wintertime to be taking something that expensive and to deliver it on our front door when we have nowhere to put it. So just a caution to watch out. Page 6, item number 17, the return of the 18.
Oh, yeah.
Again, that's a watch out.
Yeah.
We want to have that worked out well before December
Pretty-
31st.
Yeah. You have a big garage at your house, so.
It might fit.
garage.
It might fit. It might fit. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm
No,
gonna
that's
charge
a
you
good-
double though.
Well, oh, wow. We're a little short on cash this year.
And Mr. Chair,
yeah.
I'm sorry, one last thing, there have been some conversations as well about the need for a more long-term sustainable plan, succession planning. What do we do? And I think those conversations should be on our radar continuously, because as a going concern, it's important for us to be looking down the road and looking out strategically. We're in a great place now with a 3-year strategic plan as far as our activities.
Yeah.
And operations, but I think then looking out 5 years, 10 years, so that we know where we're headed and how do we make sure that this remains a going concern and continues to meet its goals. It's never too soon to be having those conversations internally and also with Tom, with the operator, and
Absolutely.
and seeing kind of where his future lies and how it intersects with ours.
I think I agree 100%. Yeah. That's.
And for the record, I just wanted to agree with that as well. I think it's really important that we look past our short-term needs to really where the future of the V&T is going, and that's all part of it. So I would be glad to be part of those conversations.
But that's awesome. I mean, I don't know, Clay, if you and Stephanie would be willing, since we can, operate in the duo, the tandem, but just representing on the city-county level, boy, I would love that. And maybe help facilitate. I mean, I realize we'll bring stuff back, as we get to sort of milestones or points along the way, but to get the conversation going, geez, that'd be wonderful. So
Thank you.
I don't know how you feel about that, Denny and Jim, but
So I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, I'm never really thrilled about a contract that's contingent on another contract. I hate that clause. If this is contingent on another contract, then make it one contract.
Yeah.
Don't have that's a not a great place to be putting yourself in.
yeah,
It just is not, and it leads to what happens if problems.
yeah,
So I think that this should be a single document that covers the operating agreement, what we pay to him to bring it down, what he pays to us it could be netted. I mean, there's no reason to have a separate contract for him to lease a piece of equipment that he's then turning around and charging us to use.
right.
And so that to me needs to be a single document, and I think
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more that this is one of those things that needs to start thinking about strategically long term where we want to be.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with having if Clay and Stephanie are willing to have them lead the effort to do that.
Okay. It's a pretty high paying gig. We'll talk about that at a future meeting down the road. And I think, Clay, that's exactly what you were basically saying is the idea to collapse kind of these two into one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because as you pointed out, Jim, to net out something as opposed to having a give and a take on two different sides seems like a cleaner way to do it. I think there may be a few very limited cases where there may be usage outside of operating it for us, and that was a point of discussion not necessarily for running trains, but for picture days or some other things like that that kind of factor in, and that's something we could definitely put into a more comprehensive. I don't know if that was part of the original thinking of having them as two separate components of a daily lease payment separate from an operating payment going back the other direction. So I can't speak to it. I wasn't part of that originally, but my understanding is that is something that may be going forward, something that is done, and so we're set up currently to accommodate that, I believe. But yeah, definitely there's a cleaner way to do this as we go forward, I think. And I'll be really honest, I'm thrilled with where we've gotten so far. I feel like we started from ground zero and built it from the ground up. And you know, it's not flashy, it's not attractive. It's you know, the building blocks, and we still have further to go, but kind of hitting the reset button, I think it's putting us on a good foundation for going forward. And I'm glad that we're about to see trains running again, even with an abbreviated season. And I think it gives us an idea to kind of to get some hands-on experience and to really then craft more intentionally where we go next year, as opposed to dealing with the circumstances that we've been given, but really navigate those a little more deftly, and then continue that on out to where we really get it where we want it to be long term. So.
Well said. No, all these comments, I 100% agree with what you've each said. I think this is setting us up very nicely for the long term. And I know we're kind of we're a little bit of in arrears here, right? You know, just with the circumstances we've been dealt here. But I like that direction long term. So great. If there's no further discussion, I'd be happy to entertain a motion on agenda item number 11. Go ahead, Jim.
I'd move to approve lease number FY 22-L002 with Virginia and Truckee Railroad for the use of locomotive 18 for a total amount of not to exceed of $20,000 through December 31st, 2022.
Thank you, Jim, for that motion. Could I have a second, please?
Yeah, this is Denny, and I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Denny. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none-
Public comment, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah, is there anybody want to make a comment on it? Okay. Seeing no public comment, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you, everybody. I feel like we have a good plan of attack, you know, to move forward, so, and we're out in front of it for sure. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 12. This is for discussion only. It's an update on the situation with the Battle Axe and Tracks event, and I'm going to go ahead and let Allison handle this one.
Gina Lopez and Ken Farley were unable to be here today, so I have a prepared statement that I will be reading on their behalf. This is Allison Bolton for the record. Dated August 25th, 2021. As an up-and-coming music festival, this is the last thing we wanted to do. However, we have made the decision that the inaugural Battle Axe and Tracks, which was set to take place October 2nd and 3rd, 2021 in Carson City, Nevada at the Eastgate Depot, will be postponed in light of growing concerns and requirements surrounding the latest increase in COVID cases nationally. We have sold tickets to this event to people coming from nearly 20 states. So the last thing we want to do is put in harm's way our attendees or our local community. It's not the message we wanted to deliver. We had a vision for Battle Axe and Tracks to produce a festival centered around the return of live music and entertainment, without masks and without social distancing protocols. With rising concerns across the industry at this point, it doesn't seem like we would be able to deliver the experience originally envisioned. We're heartbroken to make this call. However, we are committed to keeping the artist lineup as planned and are more dedicated than ever to the success of this event. Tickets will roll over to the new date for anyone who has purchased tickets to date. We have also given refunds to those who have requested it. We are currently organizing new dates for the event for October of 2022. We thank the Railway Commission for their patience and support of this event, and we will keep you informed of the developments as they occur. Sincerely, Gina Lopez and Ken Farley.
Great, thank you for doing that, Allison, appreciate it. Yeah, this has been it's been something else. So we've been losing one event after another, it seems, here in Carson City over the past couple of weeks. So hopefully we can get this worked out for next year and move it a little later so it doesn't conflict with anything in Story County, Denny, on your end as well. So, oh, yeah, perfect. Okay, so great. Thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to, sorry,
Chairman.
Jim, go ahead.
So yes, so that was not a surprise since it was in the paper the other day. But my request is that just what you said, David, is that we coordinate this date with everything else that's going around. We've got an opportunity now that we didn't necessarily have this year. And I think that, selecting a date that works for everybody in conjunction with all the other events that are going on in the community would be benefit to everyone.
And I stressed that with Gina at the beginning of the week, that needs to be a collective effort, right? If she's going to try and get this event back. And I know she's really does want to have the event come back, but yeah, we can't be impacting something for Denny up in Virginia City or push something that we may have endorsed on the Carson City side, where we're pitting events against one another. And
Right.
she wholly respects that.
Before they select a date and start sending
Yes.
out notices to their
Yeah.
customers that have bought tickets that are going to then start wanting to show up,
Yep.
that we have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with you, Jim. Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, and the plan, as we've discussed in the past, is to mitigate, to run that weekend, so that it doesn't sit empty, but that we're
Yes.
cranking along as best we can, opening up those dates for regular train rides.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we actually did that as soon as we
Of course.
knew
It is
behind
on
the scenes,
sale.
but yeah, we had
And
to. Yeah.
we're coordinating with Virginia City because it is outhouse race weekend.
Yep.
So we'll be doing a joint marketing effort on that front.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. You're welcome. All right.
Living, man. Just
clean what?
Just good, clean living right
Yeah.
there.
As long as Denny's happy, we're all happy. That's what I've learned. All right, let's go ahead and move on to agenda item number 13 for discussion only. These are our monthly non-action step items. So 13A, operations report. Allison Bolton, take it away.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I've got a
the reason I'm
mask,
here.
so you can't see my giant smile, or you'll have to just read through my sarcasm, I guess, this time. July and August, my goodness, we have really been working on launching trains and launching Polar simultaneously. So you can only imagine what our days have looked like. And quite frankly, my phone is just starting to just turn off. It feels it too. It just completely turns off. So there we have it. As last month, we're going to go through each bucket and kind of chat through each one. What is a little bit different with this update and report is that now that we've got trains running, we have full marketing going, we're really looking at my goal specifically with marketing to show you inclusive monthly numbers and activities. So, moving forward, you'll see, the next update will be the August activities and so forth. So this one, it's a little bit commingled between what we did in July, and because so much happened in August, I can't not update you about everything that's going on. So this is, again, it's commingled. The numbers, we'll see a lot of those marketing numbers at the next meeting. So I just want to get that up front. Firstly, operations. We are live in Fair Harbor for our ticketing for the new season. We have our phone tree system that's now live as well. Interestingly enough, I can pull reports on that and see where all of our calls are going. We do have a heavy amount that's going to the railway as well as to Freedom Rail, but also to the railroad up in Virginia City. The last time I checked it, it was about 7% of our calls were actually being deterred up to the railroad, which is great for us because normally we would have to call these people back and say, hey, I think you're looking for Virginia City. And so it's definitely alleviated some time on our team. We've been coordinating with Freedom Rail so that the scheduling of both trains and bikes is safe for all. Working with Tom Gray on the retail agreement that was just approved. And all things Polar Express. So we did finalize a schedule that I'm going to touch on here in a minute. We've been adjusting the new ticketing and the website. We will be moving forward with a parking plan as of, I've got to voicemail as of today for off-site parking. Our retail order is complete. Auditions have begun. Rehearsals are now underway. The most important thing I want to mention here, because this will impact future meetings, is the schedule that we've landed on. The last time we really had talked about Polar Express, we had looked at a 17-night schedule, and we have finalized exactly what the Polar Express schedule will look like. So we have 3 cars, we have a VIP, a deluxe coach, and a coach. We will be doing 3 runs a day, and the biggest difference is we're going to be doing a 23-night event. What's the change? The change from the 17 is we're launching the weekend before Black Friday, so that would be November 18th is our media day, and we're utilizing that weekend before Thanksgiving to kind of work out all the kinks, right? But we will be on sale. The additional days are actually when you start to look at the Washoe County as well as Carson City winter break, which starts on December 17th. So we're actually running every day from the 17th through the 24th, with the exception of Monday, the 20th. So that's where you're going to see the additional days. So again, the biggest difference is we added a weekend before, and we're running nearly every day when we are when the schools are out. Additionally, working forward, we're identifying a cookie vendor. Rail Events no longer endorses their cookie vendor that we've used in the past, and so we're identifying a COVID-friendly cookie vendor that we could use. We've also lost our photographer that does the depot Santa photos due to just the current state around COVID-19. He's got 2 daughters that he just wants to protect, which we completely understand. So we are working to identify a new photographer as well as our Santa at the depot. In terms of operationally, we're also, clearly gearing up for Friday, but also looking at Toast of the Canyon, possibly doing 2 canyon runs in October. I think that is it for operations. Again, this is just a high-level snapshot of everything that we've been doing. So moving forward, we're going to be providing updates monthly on general season trains, PEX trains, as well as Freedom Rail. So here's where our current numbers are as of, I believe I pulled these yesterday. So August, we've got 101 riders, September, 99 riders, and October, 72 riders, with the corresponding revenue for each column. Of course, we just went on sale about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, with a overwhelmingly positive response, and we're seeing those tickets kind of tick up here and there. Now, as far as I know, these are accurate Freedom Rail rail bike numbers, but we worked with Tina to get these numbers for you. So we've got 561 in May, 575 riders in June, 2,029 riders in July, and then 1,447 riders in August. And really the dip that you see there is attributed to the smoke and how they're unable to really run tours when the smoke is, I believe it's above 140 or so, and we're seeing numbers around 300 plus at the depot currently. We will be big news for Polar tomorrow, hint, hint, wink, wink, not tomorrow, I guess Saturday, sorry. I'm always a day ahead this week. So Polar numbers will be updated, or we'll do the initial Polar numbers at our next meeting. Assets, we've been working with Freedom Rail to kind of clear up the depot and kind of have some designated workspaces so we're not on top of each other. We're cleaning things out, cleaning things up, working on the Engine 18 coordination, and really it's continuing to do that, updating the signage. We're also working on a inventory of all of our different storage that we have. Everything is mainly found a home now, and now we just need to go back and do an actual inventory of everything that we own. So that would be the red container, the container in front of the steel building itself, as well as the ticketing building. Board relations, I said in the last meeting, my goal was to work more on operations and less on board relations, and yay, we got there. We did have a little bit in here with coordination of the SOQ for the auditor, working with Draco, as well as we are moving forward with the foundation. Lauren with our team is working with David on that, establishing who will be the registered agent, as well as the initial board. We did decide that we are reaching out to 2 out of this board to sit on that board as well. We won't be going beyond the 2 so that we don't interfere with any sort of quorum issues with the commission. Any questions on the foundation, please reach out. Again, the purpose of this is so that we can work for grants as well as solicit donations. Up next, really continue to working on the accounts payable, working with Jim to make sure those reports are all lined up, coordinating these commission meetings and establishing that foundation, wanting, again, to focus on ridership more so on the board. I love you guys, I really do, but really want to focus on that ridership. Marketing. So this is a little bit different update than what we saw last month. I've broken it down even more into different buckets. Again, this is going to be a little bit more of a baseline update. And then at the next meeting, you'll see July numbers. And then you'll see August numbers. And then at the next meeting, you'll see September and so forth. So part of the public relations, you'll see a clip report that'll really pull together all of the different clips that we've gotten, what our reach is, how many impressions, so forth, to pull the report in line with the meeting. It's not a full, complete view of everything, so we opted to just do monthly updates at each commission meeting, but kind of high-level stuff here. We distributed 2 press releases, or 1 press release and a media invite, 1 surrounding the launch, and then an additional one that was just a media invite to invite media to the event on the 28th that we've named Back to the Track. We've been working on interviews. We've had an interview with KTVN, Nevada Appeal, PBS Reno. We have done 2 e-blasts. One was the initial launch, and then we did a secondary one this week that was just a strictly invitation, come on the 28th, celebrate the return. And as I mentioned, the August clip report that will pull together all the different media coverage that we've had this last month will be in the next meeting. Social media, again, these are some baseline numbers so then we can show the growth moving forward. But in terms of activities the last month and a half, we have, I've deemed it the new old Facebook page. So we've scheduled the deletion of the new old Facebook page. That was the page that was created in 2020. It has about 1,500 followers on it. Facebook requires a 15-day period where it still lives on Facebook. It's been the longest 15 days of my life. I believe it's still up. I think we've got 2 days left or so for that page to eventually go away. And we did do a post that said, be sure to like our original page, which does have, as you'll see there, 16,538 likes or followers. We did run a boosted post, on Facebook for the initial launch. Again, you'll see that report because it ran in August. You'll see the actual numbers for that in the next meeting. And then we updated what's called the handle, which is the @ so that it's the same for both Facebook and Instagram. You want that to be the same in terms of messaging and branding. Because of the changes in Facebook, we had to find when that was available. So we are now at V&T Railway Commission. Advertising, we are currently working with a media buyer to put together a buy for the general season as well as PEX. Really the main thing here is we're looking at hitting the PEX advertising. We're hitting it hard in October. So really kind of letting it go organically and naturally to see where tickets go. And then we'll be hitting some advertising, outdoor, print, and online advertising starting in October. And we will be working with the marketing committee to review those plans. And again, we did run 1 boosted post on Facebook just to kind of get us going. The website, we handled all of the updates to the website to reflect the train launch. So here's kind of a snapshot of what it looks like. Below this, there's buttons that are now updated that has, trains are back and announcements coming soon for Polar Express and so forth. As far as we can tell, we don't have any sort of Google Analytics account, which is what we use to gather information of, this many people went to this page on your website and this many people went to that page and they stayed for 3 seconds, they stayed for 2 minutes and so forth. So you have to establish that account with them and then it takes a few days for it to generate. A report wouldn't really show much at this point. So hopefully at the next meeting, you will see the Google Analytics report that will have the behavior of our website visitors. That is it. Again, high level of our activities, certainly not everything that we've been up to, but kind of the big stuff, and happy to answer any questions yeah.
Now, let me just say, they've been busting butt, Allison and the whole team, this past month. I feel like we talk 20 times a day, it seems, 8 days a
I
week.
told you my
so-
phone was tired.
Yeah, no, yeah, you guys have done just amazing work to get us to the point where we're 2 days away from starting the trains up. So I'm very, very excited about that. I don't want to hog the whole conversation, but I do want to ask one question about the reporting. Do you guys use Cision? When you were talking about the August clip report, are you using Cision so you will be able to, no, oh, okay.
We currently don't have a Cision account. I
Oh.
could potentially have access to a Cision account. It's a manual one at this point in
You're
time.
manually
We are
pulling-
manually
oh,
pulling
gosh,
that,
okay,
yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I just wondered about that. And then the other thing I was gonna add, we're trying to, on the Visit Carson City side, we're working with Allison and the team, so, she had the boosted post, and Lydia, we did one, so we've been trying to kind of work as collaboratively as we can, or switch off, 1 week V&T, 1 week us, and so we're trying, to help with things getting off the ground. We pushed some stuff out this week, I think, to about 6,000 of our subscribers as well. We did it as what's coming up this weekend, but it also included the trains too. So we're diligently, I should say, Lydia is doing that from my team, but working as well on that front. So great, yeah, great work. Any questions from the commission? Any comments? Go ahead, Jim.
First off, you do a phenomenal job to have these trains ready to go this weekend, and the email blast, I've gotten a couple of different email blasts about the kickoff this weekend, so I'm really excited to see the trains running again. Polar Express, the additional dates, we probably need to amend the Lollipop contract too, because that was predicated on much fewer dates. So we're going to need to bring that back to September with the amended dollar amount.
Can I speak to that quick? So
Go
we
ahead.
have already coordinated with her. She's tentatively sent, here's what the changes would be. We are potentially looking at a November amendment to that. So that, again, if there's any changes between now and then, we give ourselves that liberty to do so. So we're working actively with her on that.
And Jim, my thought behind that was October or November was just so we didn't amend, September, then something changes or adjusts, or Carla, you see something happening with the new dates, and then we're back here in October, and, we're on like Amendment 5 by the time we even have our first PEX show.
Well, I don't even know that, I would expand it to the 23 days. I don't think we're going to keep going beyond the 23 days. You may have fewer days. And again, it's just a not to exceed contract. I would just bring back the contract and get it signed and amended.
Without all of the detail like was in the original contract, because Carla actually put together all the detail for the additional shows and then that's what Allison, basically, they've been working on all of that detail to mirror the original contract. But if you're comfortable with just 23 dates, not to exceed, it's 82,000 or whatever.
We have a fairly close approximation of what a train runs, what a train costs to run.
Yeah, we could do that. I guess we could keep it simple. So, yeah, if everybody's okay with that, okay. Sounds good.
I don't think it needs to be all that complex.
So Carla, you find
It's Tina.
sorry, I'm looking, I thought you were Carla, I'm so sorry. I'm looking, I'm so sorry. I thought she was gonna be here. Sorry, Tina, sorry. Okay, so forgive me for not even paying attention to who's behind the mask. Okay, we'll talk to Carla about that.
Definitely.
then-
And the only other
yeah.
things that have come up, not in the original were things like masks and visors and things like that, which we are required to do so now. So I don't see that changing either, so we can include that.
The foundation, I think the board needs to have a discussion about whether the board wants to be the board of the foundation. The Carson City has like the health district, that's the board of supervisors. I think it's the health district. The board of supervisors is the health district. I think we need to decide whether just 2 people on that board, or if we want to just be the board of the nonprofit.
Can you, will you explain the first part though, versus the long term? Do you want to just break that down, like what the email you sent me?
Mr. Chairman, I'm so sorry. Please accept my apologies. I have an unavoidable conflict.
No, go
So
Clay.
thank you, commission members.
you.
My apologies as well.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Thank you, Clay.
Thanks.
Safe travels back. will you just kind of, I don't disagree, Jim, but will you explain what you're trying to do to at least initially get things off the ground? And
The initial thought was that we would utilize two, mainly to avoid any sort of quorum issues, unless we wanted to bring foundation meetings within commission meetings. We could look at that.
that's what you.
That's
sorry,
actually where
that's
I'm
what you want
leaning.
to
If
do.
you watch the way
Ah.
the city does it, they kind of like take a break and then they reformat themselves as what I think is it the health?
Oh, the
is health
redevelopment
board?
authority and the board of.
I can't remember which board it is, but
Ah.
there's a board where the city like
Yeah.
takes a break. I thought it was the health
Yes.
district or the health board.
We
And then they
do.
reconvene and then they go back to the regular meeting. I think I'd be more comfortable with all of the board having these discussions as opposed to two members making decisions that are really impacting the rest of us.
And
What-
just a question that I have in that, and you're correct, we do that with Board of Health, we do that with the Redevelopment Authority, but I guess I would just ask we make sure there's not a difference or a conflict with a fundraising board and our commission, just to make sure we're not doing something we shouldn't be.
Yeah, this is Denny. I was going to say something similar. We did something at Piper's Opera House, something similar. The county-owned building, I'm managing that through my department, but we had to create a separate board to make it a true nonprofit to accept gratuity, donations, where we couldn't do that as a formal local government. You can't just accept a donation. You have to do it as a standalone foundation, if you will. And I think another example is Hot August Nights does the same thing. They have different board members. They have a couple that represent from their board, but they also have, and that way they can accept and give money to charitable organizations. So just something to consider.
Another strategy that we were thinking about in the separate, keeping it separate, was an opportunity to involve the community in the fundraising side of things as opposed to the commissioners. So a little bit more community buy-in. But we're currently at the place where we're just kind of outlining bylaws and we're taking the former foundation and kind of pulling that and highlighting things that we may want to discuss before we actually file those bylaws.
Yeah.
At this point, what we could potentially do is identify two to work on the formation of it before we actually establish the board.
And we could take two, bring it back in September and lay it all out too. If a couple of us work on it, to bring it back, well, I don't know if we can do all this in September, but let's try to do it at the September meeting. Would that work?
Well, and I don't know that it's needs to be done by September. I mean, it's been dormant for how many years now? I don't think that waiting for a few more months is going to kill us. But I think the board needs to be involved in the creation of something that's going to be representing the board.
Agreed. Yeah.
It almost seems as if maybe it's an item that could be agendized for a workshop at the end of the year as we go into next year.
Yeah.
Maybe start getting some details and stuff worked out, because we got busy stuff to do. It's a busy fall.
Yeah.
And we know December is going to be off the hook.
Yeah.
So maybe it is something that as we, take a big deep breath, we got all this stuff going on, we get some ducks in a row, if you will, and then we can present it in a workshop of some type to go into next year.
Yeah.
Actually, I really like that idea of, let's get through Polar Express and Christmas, and then maybe in January, February,
Okay.
before the trains are really running.
Yep.
Again, for next spring, we have this discussion as an item on that.
Okay, let's do that.
And if we do that, I would ask if we're going to do it as a workshop, could we do a check-in at least on our strategic plan too? And just kind of a brief update, because this is a part,
Exactly.
this was a part of that long-term planning in the strategic plan. So maybe we could do that in lieu of a regular meeting or something in January, if everybody's schedule permits. So, okay. Yeah, and it wasn't to, just Jim, we were trying to figure out how to divide and conquer and work in the groups of two so we could actually get something formed and then bring it, back for everybody to take a look at. But this is a fine alternative. So, and then everybody's a part of it on the front end versus in the public meeting after the fact. So, good suggestion.
Great,
Let's
so
do
we'll
it.
work on a workshop in January and we'll table
Yeah.
this for then.
I like that.
Great.
Any other questions?
Just a couple of quick things, and I won't take up much time. Virginia City also is, pushing socials and that kind of stuff on the grand opening, the launch, and the 18 coming back to Virginia City, which is really cool. Question for you on the paid advertising. Are we primarily looking at local parameters, if you will, not outside? Are we just looking at Northern California with the ad buys, or are we just primarily staying here in local Northern California?
Primarily staying local, and the full budget for Polar, we had a set amount for marketing. And before I'm kind of signing off on any sort of buy based on that marketing, I'm trying to figure out my other expenses that may have been overlooked in the original budget. So making sure that we have enough to do the event and then the leftover kind of into that marketing bucket. Based on that, I don't anticipate that we're going to be able to do much out of market. We're going to have to keep it mainly local.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was headed was, looking at several events that we put on this year, some that we were able to put off last year, we didn't have to spend the money on the marketing, and we pulled it back. Once we evaluated ticket sales, I'll be dead honest, camel races right now, I've never seen anything like it. I'm almost sold out. I mean, it's like, what the heck? And we really typically 2 weeks leading up to an event when we usually kick in the heavy marketing, and we're like going to use that somewhere else. Still do it, but so it's just something to think about. It's easier to get folks here. There's a lot of people in our backyard. I think we're still a little bit with these stupid masks, and the drive market's still strong versus traveling too far, whether it's by plane or whatnot. So there's a lot of people here in Northern Nevada that we can take advantage of.
And that's exactly our reasoning with not starting until October, because I do think we're going to organically see this thing do well. The marketing with the October as well. When you look at the tickets from 19, that's really what I have to go off of. We do fairly sell out those last 2 weeks, but it's those early weeks that are a little bit lighter, and so we'll be marketing mainly towards those earlier runs. I didn't mention, which I should, we've got a different pricing structure as well. So that what we're calling Leah, what are we calling it? Standard pricing? Standard pricing and premium pricing. The standard pricing is going to be November 18th through December 16th. And then December 17th through the 24th would be a premium price with a price increase. Both of the pricing structures do include a bump in the price point. However, the standard bump is only, I think it's like an $8 price increase.
One last question. Speaking of camel races, do we still have an early departure on that Saturday?
Yes.
Okay. I know there's stuff that can get missed.
The short answer is yes.
I know, but I just worry that, some of these guys are going to come in early to ride the camels. We want to make sure we let those ticket holders know to get their camel race tickets, because they are going pretty quick. And there is going to be a special, the train was going to leave at what time on that day? Was it?
8:30.
8:30, okay. They may be a little tight, but there will be a first responders special appreciation for the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. There'll be some cool stuff. We have, let's say we have a lot of stuff going to happen at about 9:30. The show starts at 10, but at 10 there's a major flyover planned right now. As long as the weather holds up, we've got several governmental entities involved. We had our local fire department has really been working hard on it. So it's something kind of special.
Should we entertain a first responder price for that morning run?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be in favor of that, but that's my
great
opinion.
idea.
Yeah, but it's be in your seats at 9:30, 9:45, and which
It'll be tight, yeah.
Which is tight, but we'll do everything we can. But come 10 o'clock, the sky is going to open up. So
It's fantastic.
cool.
Sounds exciting. Great. Okay. Any other questions for Allison? Any comments? Great. Well, keep up the good work to you guys, the whole team. Thank you. Well done. Well done. All right, let's go ahead and move on to 13B, Attorney's Report. Michael Rowe.
Well, as David can tell you, it's been a pretty busy month for us, meaning David and me, in addition to spending quite a bit of time on 9, 10, and agenda items 9, 10, and 11 to get those contracts in shape for you guys to consider. Especially the lease. We didn't get it until last Friday.
Yeah.
We didn't hear from Tom Gray or his attorney until an afternoon email last Friday. So we put a lot of last minute effort into getting the contract in good enough for you guys to consider. In addition to the agenda items, got the BCM instructions ready, and David has signed those, and Allison will track down Mr. Street, at which point the BCM escrow instructions will be delivered to BCM, and shortly thereafter, I'm hoping that you'll see that $200,000.
Yep.
So that's one other thing that we worked on. With regard to the 18 lease, you want to sign that today, David, and then give it to Allison to track down Tom Gray for signature?
Yep. That
Okay.
was my plan, which I have it here, yes.
And the only other thing that probably nobody noticed, but we had to tweak the agenda on the first page because the language that we were using for the previous directives were wrong. They've been superseded, as we all can tell from our masks. So we got that reworked. And that's about it. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Mike, for that report. Any questions for Mike? Great, yeah, and we'll keep everybody updated. Hopefully, like Mike said, by the next meeting, we'll have that 200K figured out with Mr. Street and have everything squared up. So my fingers are crossed that we'll be there for the next meeting. So we'll be able to put that to rest. Great. With that, let's go ahead and move on. Thank you, Mike. Let's go ahead and move on to 13C, the engineer's report. Ken Dorr, and I think I see Gary on in just a little picture there. Can you? Yeah, we can see him. Gary, are you able to hear us?
I am able to hear you.
Oh,
Can
great.
you hear me?
Okay,
great.
yes, wonderful, thank you. Ken, you'll just have to look behind,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
and Gary's going to talk about the Overman Pit, which is a couple items down the list there, and we'll get into that at that point. It's been about 5 years since I've done a PowerPoint, but I was actually able to remember some of the things and some of the cycle in my brain rehabbed. So I put a couple items on this list here, if you will, and basically the engineer's report itself. There's 3 items that have quote-unquote additional information, which is included in the PowerPoint, which I wanted to go over, and then we can come back to some of these other quickie items. The first item is a cost summary. And this, Jim, goes to your question last month, was who's keeping track of the budgets? Well, part of my scope of work is to keep track of the maintenance away and related budgets. And also, in addition to that, I'm keeping track of my time, if you will, whether it's related to maintenance away supervision or miscellaneous engineering. The first page that we're looking at right now, if you look at the highlighted in yellow, that's the basically maintenance away cost for inspections and the maintenance that Gabe has been doing on the track. That is through the end of July. So it doesn't reflect the work that's happened here in the last month. The bottom line is we're looking at including equipment rental costs. He's sitting at about $24,000 right now. And if you look on the next page, when we get to that, let's see, hit the wrong button there. There we go. If you look at what we actually budgeted or we anticipated, we're looking at roughly about $98,000, the number I threw out. And I think if the 100,000 was the number we were generally speaking. Now, there's some overlap of items here, but the bottom line is we're looking pretty good on maintenance away costs compared to what we anticipated. Gabe has done quite a bit of work this last month. He's also had to rent some equipment from Tom to clean up some ditches and whatnot. So I'm guessing there's probably another $10,000 that's coming forward on this next billing cycle. Bottom line is I think we're doing good. And if we get to the point where we're going to go over that budget, then it's my job to let you folks know that there's a problem. One of the things on the second page on the budget, I always carry down at the bottom, there's two items. One is the long-term capital improvements or maintenance cost, and I've been carrying that $250,000 guesstimate for overman repairs long-term, as well as replacing a bad culvert down below Eastgate. And those are just reminders that at some point in time, we're going to have to deal with those two. Okay? Okay, the next one, we talked a little bit about last month about purchasing some signs for the rail bike block. What I wanted to do was show the board which is still in process plan, if you will, of what is going on with this so-called rail bike block. We went through a number of different iterations to prepare this current drawing, and it's not current because it sounds like things have changed a little bit since then. But the basic concept was behind this plan, which was prepared after we had a joint meeting at the beginning of July. Myself, Denny, not Denny, but David and Tom, as well as some of the rail bikes folks on the meeting, if you will, on the computer. And the basic concept behind this is taking a recommendation that we had received from the Federal Railway Administration's Operations Safety Officer out of Sacramento. And what he recommended, the safest way to work things was to use the concept called direct traffic control. And what that amounts to is basically before any trains would enter that rail block on the days that both are operating, is that the dispatcher would give authority to the train to enter that rail bike block once he had coordinated with the rail bike people to assure that their equipment was off the track. That was the concept. We actually put up signs to reflect the rail bike block and the rail bike hold point, which you see on this little picture, and I got a picture of that. That was the location that was suggested by Tom, where the concept, the trains would come down, they'd stop at that location, they'd call the dispatcher, i.e. him, and then he would give them authority to move forward. Completely honest with you, I don't know if that's the procedure we're using. We haven't had a whole lot of feedback on this plan, but that was the plan that was prepared basically we had a meeting on July 2nd, and the plan I prepared on July 3rd and got it out to everybody for comments. So I guess what I'm saying is this is a in-working plan. It's not finalized. I'm not even sure if Tom wants to utilize the direct traffic control. It, quite frankly, sounds like that's not the approach that he's utilizing, but I haven't had any communication or feedback from him. And again, I'm not the operation guy. I got sort of roped into operations. I said my knowledge stops at the top of the rail, and I just didn't leave it at that because I don't really like the criticism. I don't know how to run anything about trains or what the operating rules are. But with that in mind, this is the current plan we have now, and the signs that we have up as of last week, basically it's corresponds with locations on the map, and it's the end of the rail bike block and the beginning of the rail bike block and that rail bike hold point, which is again up above Lineham Road. That was selected so that trains, should they be stopping there, aren't stopping in the signal circuit and dropping the crossing gates at Lineham Road, so we don't end up with people irritated with crossing gates deployed with no train in sight.
Yep.
So that's where we're going with that. Again, I'm not sure
Ken,
where they
can
go
I
from
just
there.
jump in for a second? So, and Allison, you feel free, just from your conversation with Tom. So the plan is, and obviously this weekend is our test case, right? Because it's the first time we'll have trains and the rail bikes on the tracks. But Tom's going to hold right here before our sign that you've got put up before any trains come down into the east gate. So
Great.
he's going to make sure that all of the cars are the rail bikes are off the tracks. And once that signal is all clear from, it'll either be Nick or somebody, if it's not Nick, giving that go ahead before the train comes in. You know, and then on the Freedom Rail side, and Allison, you correct me because you were just talking with Todd and Vinny about this. They're not going to put any rail bikes back on until they get the green light from Tom and his team. Yes, we've cleared the rail bike block before they actually put the rail bikes back onto the tracks at the depot. So, but I don't want to paraphrase.
You are correct.
incorrectly,
That
but-
is exactly what was discussed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And as Chris Groom with the FRA suggested, he said the advantage of having a dispatcher is not, in addition to coordinating all movements on the track, is if there's an emergency that comes up, then that's one person you contact. Hey, there's cars on the track, or we have a derailment over here, or there's a fire issue. Having that person you can call, like on the big railroad, saying, hey, this bridge is burning up, that's really a positive item. One of the things that this is taking off my engineer's hat, and just an observation. Whether or not I like the rail bikes is irrelevant. I think that they're a wonderful item to help bring tourists into our area. In other words, you get people on the rail bikes. The whole point of this whole concept, this project in general, was to generate tourist traffic and tourist revenues. And they generate tourist revenue as well as the wonderfully having the excursion trains running again. To me, I think there's a great opportunity to work together. In other words, hey, rail bike customers, by the way, would you consider wanting to take the train up to Virginia City, and vice versa? So I think not so much from a revenue standpoint from the commission, but the point is all these people that are riding these various venues are spending tourist dollars here, maybe just a tank of gas, maybe they're spending the night. But to me, that's all positive. And I think it's really positive if we can just work together and make this work. It's not brain surgery, work out some of the kinks. I think we can move forward positively, so.
No, Ken, I share your enthusiasm for seeing both operations
Okay,
take place. And I know that, this may not be perfect this weekend, but we're going to learn from it. And I envision, as you said, we may have to refine the safety plan a little bit as we go over the next couple of weekends. So.
Absolutely,
or
and we
exhibit it,
anticipated
so-
doing that. Let's
Yeah.
start with something that,
Yeah.
and again, our biggest concern is safety, and then to me, it's safety yet maximizing the number of people that get to enjoy the railroad facility, whether it be rail bikes or excursion train.
No, agreed. And I know Allison, I mean, she's been working with the Freedom Rail folks about a rail bike and hike, and maybe looking at doing something in the evening so we can work around hours, of all the things that are taking place during the course of the day. So I appreciate that effort, right, to come up with some different opportunities for our guests, for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're looking at doing a morning, actually, spend your day on the rail. So an early rail bike tour,
be
and then
great.
you come back to the depot, get breakfast, and then get onto the train and go up to Virginia City.
Great.
Yes, sorry, morning.
In the works.
Yeah.
May not happen this weekend, but we're discussing it.
Good. I think a lot of opportunities. I think you guys are heading in the right direction, so. Anything else on the rail bike blocks or pictures before I go on to the Overman?
Any, nope, go ahead. Ken.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next issue was back in, I think it was January, and Kent Hanford, who did the bridge inspection, was talking a little bit about the Overman, and noticed there was some settlement there, and the question is, and Kent mentioned, well, in the past, we've done some settlement modeling in there. So based on, and it was included in my contract, let's go ahead and reinstitute the settlement monitoring, if you will, of the Overman embankment. And Gary Luce is on the line here too. Gary is and has been our geotechnical engineer. Like myself, he worked on the project for probably about 10 years for free, and then finally we had to pay him a little bit to actually get him to stamp some plans. But Gary's very familiar with what happens with the Overman embankment. We've had some additional geotechnical issues we had out there, and we did some additional explorations when we thought there was a tunnel being collapsed, but that was way back in 2011. That wasn't the case. But bottom line is the Overman embankment is guaranteed to settle. That was planned on. In some cases, it settled a little bit more than was planned on. Without getting into the specific reasons on that, it looks like it's basically stable. This first screen, what this is a picture of is essentially the Overman embankment. And if I can do this properly, let's see, where's the control key? Right there. Yeah, maybe I'm not going to be able to do that. But anyway, the Overman embankment, which is on this curve, this crosshatch area, was actually reconstructed in 2014. We experienced quite a bit of settlement, including one localized location. And so what we did was we pulled up the track, we cleaned up the subgrade, we added some additional subgrade material, and then we put geotechnical fabric down over top of that subgrade, and then put the track back in and raise it up to a surface. That was done in 2014. These little colored dots you're seeing are survey monuments, basically rebar, that were set along the top of the embankment so we could monitor how much that guy is settling. And we've been pretty much doing that from day one. When we did the reconstruction, all the previous hubs went away because we had to tear them out, so we put new ones in. But basically, that's a graphical representation of those survey points, and typically what the three colors mean is we shot that point in 2014, and 2019, and with the exception of the ones on the west end, which weren't in there and past 2019, we also took a survey shot on those in 2021. The next page is basically a spreadsheet without getting into the details of it. It's what's the status of those points, how much have things moved? And again, if you look at the first set of columns, 2014, those were when most of the points were set. We surveyed those again in 2019. And what brought that on? Everything was really stable until we had this little storm event. It sort of sprinkled a little bit in 2017. And then we noticed a lot of settlement that hadn't been previously noted for the next couple of years. If you look at the highlighted areas of the settlement, and again, it's the delta elevation on this column under the 2019, I highlighted those and I said, okay, if it's 0.2 of a foot, which is roughly 2 inches, then it's highlighted in yellow. If it's between 0.2 and 0.5, it's going to be highlighted in that brownish color. And anything over that is in red. Now, if you notice, there's a couple locations. This is actually outside of the area where we had done the previous reconstruction. We had 0.7 or basically 8 inches of settlement. And that was pretty much all in 1 year. So that was a big problem. And what happens is the embankment settles, so we have to raise the track back up, put additional ballast in there. After a while, that ballast section, we get concerned because it gets so thick that you end up with sort of a set of marbles that the track is running on. So that's what sort of kicks in the need for actually doing something with the subgrade rather than just raising the track and surfacing and lining the track. The last set of columns is basically the survey we did in July of 2021. So that was 2 years after the 2019, and a little bit of settlement here and there, but the most we saw was 0.2 of a foot. Not too worried about that. And again, the only thing I can guarantee about this embankment, it's going to settle. A little bit of history on this. We went through a fairly extensive discussion with NDOT when they were involved in the project as, do we want to put an embankment or do we want to build a trestle? And everybody loves a trestle, me too. But the problem was this whole ground is underlain with mines, mining operations, and the concern with the trestle was that, number one, we'd have to do a really extensive amount of geotechnical drilling trying to figure out what was there. And then what happens if we miss something? And the trestle will collapse instantaneously, was my concern. Whereas, in other words, you got a train up there with that live load, boom, that baby hole could come down. So we said an embankment, yes, it's going to settle, but it's probably not going to do it catastrophically. So that was one of the reasons we went with the embankment. Embankment was a little cheaper too, but it was mainly what's going to happen in the long term. Do we want to put people into the ditch off a trestle, or we just want to have to put slow orders on the track? With that, I'm going to let Gary talk a little bit about, I asked Gary to take a look at this information. Again, Gary has been instrumental in looking at what's going on with that embankment, where the issues are, and asked him to take a look at it and take a look at where we're at. And Gary, if you're there, can maybe discuss what you found, what your recommendations are.
Sure. Basically, the latest data shows that the settlement is continuing at a slower rate, and that's the good news. The bad news is it's not been subjected. The embankment hasn't seen a big rainstorm, and we know that those tend to accelerate the settlements. We're hoping overall that it's going to slow down with time, But we can't count on that. We need to be diligent about monitoring the settlements and making sure that if they exceed a certain amount, that we're slow ordering or doing some sort of mitigation to deal with the amount of settlement we get. And of course, if it's something very large, then we have to stop traffic and do mitigations, as was done before, probably reconstructing the top of the embankment again. And that's really the key, is that we need to continue to monitor. And that's several components of that. One's the routine track inspections, keep an eye on it. After that, it's the yearly or semi-yearly inspections of the embankment itself. And then, of course, for any incidents that are known to occur. So it's a fairly aggressive plan to keep an eye on it. And it's not the only place we're looking at on the entire alignment for other issues. So it's part of the routine observation and monitoring of various components on the alignment. The other one that I'm directly involved in is the tunnel. So that's another place that we need to be routinely inspecting. So I'm just trying to say this isn't particularly unusual to have to monitor large geotechnical structures.
Basic, Gary, I think what the bottom line is, let's keep monitoring it. And in a couple of years, as we feel the need, we'll do another actual survey to measure the specific settlements, but basically keep a look at it. And Gabe looks at the embankment the whole time and try to look at it, least from a geotechnical standpoint, hopefully once a year. And again, if something looks haywire, then we need to move forward more rapidly. We don't anticipate a massive settlement that's going to cause a catastrophic issue. It's only going to be when we have to kick in and do some more pretty high dollar work. Right now, that's not right now and not imminent. So it's 2-4 years somewhere down the road.
Ken and Gary, thank you. Can I just ask a quick question then? So are you suggesting then that we would take this similar measurement in July of 2023, or do we need to be doing this every year, or we could stay with every 2 years because that settling from the, and I should have brought my glasses, but I can't tell if it's negative 0.6, 0.7, 0.6. It got better, obviously, if it's negative 0.01, like where it went from red to white and gray, a little bit of yellow on that one. Does that mean we're okay to look at this?
Well,
in 23?
again, my thinking, it really depends on the weather, but I think
Okay.
we can wait at least 2 years to do another actual, get the survey crew out there, because they don't
Okay.
work for cheap. They're a little expensive.
Okay.
But it's still good to have this information. What's really critical is Gabe goes over that track twice a week,
Sure.
and he knows what to look for. When he can't hold his rail surface because the embankment's settled and it gets too excessive, then it's like, okay, what's going on here? Is that normal, or do we see something weird?
Yeah.
And so he sees it on a weekly basis.
Okay.
I don't see it that often, and Gary hasn't seen it for 6 months or so. He's going to be out here later this fall, we believe, and take a look at both the tunnel and the embankment as part of our annual inspections. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say guess every 2 years,
Every two,
but if we get another big storm, like it doesn't rain here anymore, I guess,
Yeah.
and so that's a good thing. And
Yeah.
Gary has tried, but he has not been able to suspend the laws of gravity, which we'd really like, and not have it rain right around the track, every place else.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to keep a look at it. And
Okay.
then-
And then just forgive me because I'm not an engineer or anything like that. But the red area from the survey in 2019, it is thought that might have been from the heavy rainstorms in 2017.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Because the track was holding up really well
Okay.
from 2014 up through 2016. Okay, so 2 years there was no settlement, then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
You see all the settlement, and lo and behold, we had all kinds of flooding issues and culvert issues and mud on track issues. And what happened is the subgrade below that big, huge embankment, which weighs, 600,000 pounds or something like that, Gary? More than that, 300,000 yards of dirt. So
Yeah.
what does that come to weight? How many millions of tons? So
That's a lot.
is, when that gets wet, it wants to settle. And
Okay.
again, it's all unstable mined ground. In some cases, it's mine dumps, and it's not very good. We didn't build on bedrock because there wasn't any there,
Sure.
so.
Okay. Yeah. And so is it fair to assume that because there was a 5-year difference, from the 2014, that obviously if we had been doing it every 2 years, it may not have looked that bad, I guess? Is
Yeah.
that fair to assume that?
I'm
or-
not worried about what we see there right now. And
Okay.
so again, if something changes in the future, then we'll have to
Then
jump
we'll
on a little
address it.
faster.
Okay. Oh, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Gary, anything else?
Yeah, can I add something? I'd like to add just one thing, and that is when we reconstructed the previous section, we did put an impermeable membrane underneath the entire roadbed.
Right.
And the decrease in settlement is in part due to that. So the area that to the south of the retaining wall up there that's now started to show some settlement, that does not have an impermeable barrier over it. So adding that in the next phase of any mitigation would hopefully also decrease the rate of settlement.
And in closing on the Overman, I've heard some discussion here and there, and apparently Tom has come up with, or has some other ideas about, rather than taking the track up and rebuilding the roadbed, and there's a more efficient method. We did look at grouting the track structure, if you will, but we figured the time the mobilization on that's going to kill us. But I'm hoping that Tom would enlighten me as to what, and I'm not being derogatory. Anybody's got great ideas, and if he's got some better ideas up there as to what has to happen when we have to go to reconstruct that, I'd love to hear those.
No, that would be great. Yeah. No, if there's some alternatives,
Exactly.
I think that would be wonderful to explore those and see what the cost looks like. And
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, that's why I'm still carrying this $250,000 budget item, just as a reminder, just in case down the road we're going to have to spend some money. So, anything else on that?
Anything on the Overman pit? Nope. Okay. Go ahead.
Gary, you done?
Thank you, Gary.
I'm all done.
All right, thanks.
Thank you
Well,
very
I'll get
much,
you out-
Gary.
Get you out
Appreciate
in
it.
person one of these days.
Yeah, I
Okay,
look forward
back
to
to the engineer's report. What else? I was doing a little bit maintenance waste supervision, which is coordinating with work with Gabe. And, and he's done a few things, the Hayward switch, and he's on vegetation control. Gabe, why don't you tell us a little bit about the work you've had ongoing?
So this is Gabe Williman. Since the last meeting, somebody did say that our track was crap and they didn't want to run on it. And we did have the Nevada State PUC inspector ride with Ken, Allison, and Leon and I. And he said it looks great. It's 80-mile-an-hour track on UP if it weren't for the curves. But he said it was really good. I have rented Tom's equipment. I've used it for 3 days digging, 1 day moving it. I don't know if he's going to charge us the move day, but a couple of days it wouldn't start. 1 day the brakes were broke on it, so we fixed that and returned it to him in the same condition he gave it to us. And we did that. We fixed Hayward's. We put a new crossing gate arm on at Lanahan to replace the broken one that somebody took off. What else? What else has there been? Just picking and shoveling, trying to clean up all the dirt and the junk around, but it's never-ending battle.
Gabe, you feel good, for this weekend, obviously?
Oh,
for
yeah.
Saturday? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you
it's-
for getting
it's-
everything cleaned up. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Yeah, we're in pretty good shape. And I asked the question to Tim Blaylock, who's the Nevada State Public Utilities Commission Rail Safety Supervisor for the state. I asked it in front of Allison for a reason. I said, what do you think about this as an excursion track? And basically he's going, the UP's main line in some cases isn't as good as this track. With that being said, we still have problems. There's things that need to be fixed. But we spent quite a bit of money to build this, more so than was initially thought. We used heavier rail section. We used new ties. And with the idea was, I'm going to go back to exactly what Bob Gray told me years ago when we first started looking at this. And he said, anything we can do to minimize the long-term, day-to-day maintenance costs by spending money up front is a plus, and he was right, and still is.
I'm glad to hear that, we got a recommend, or I don't, recommendation, whatever that is, but a clean bill of health
Yeah.
from the inspector. That's good to hear that.
Again, that's not saying everything might fall apart tomorrow, but I don't think so. Dave's got some work coming up. We deferred the resurfacing lining on the Overman because we didn't want to do that in the heat. So the last thing you want to do is touch track when it's hot, because then you end up with I can't use the term sun kink, it's thermal misalignment is the politically correct term. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to go there. And then, so we have some work to do at Overman. We know that. There probably is going to have to be some additional ballast placed in various locations. We have a soft spot at milepost 15-3. Gabe needs to do a little more work on the bad switch at Hayward's. By the way, you look at it, it's maybe not perfect looking, but for the operational speed, it's well within the tolerances established by the Federal Railroad Administration for the class of track, i.e. the speed we're operating on. So, and Tim even said, he said, I didn't see anything on this entire track that would even close to an FRA geometric standard violation for that speed track we have. Okay, one of the other things I did was, per David's request, I went ahead and pulled out some of the RFP documents for the original track maintenance contract we did in 2010 and modified those, brought those up to speed because some of the scope of work that we're doing now has changed. So you have my latest and greatest guesstimate of that, and I know ultimately you're going to get that to Stephanie. She's going to be able to cuss me about it, but hopefully that'll save you some work. So,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
let's see, FRA reports to the depot. Sooner or later, I need to work with Allison. We've designated that the depot is where we're going to keep our records, our track inspection, signal inspection, bridge inspection records, which in case the FRA ever wants to look at them, we got to keep them for basically 2, or in the case of the bridge, I think it's 3 years. And so that's just a matter, I don't know if we have a hard drive available, but my thinking was put them on a computer there and then also maybe have a backup hard drive, a hard copy of them, print them out. Let's see. I'm continuing to do the Form 55 reports and just talked to Allison about those. I think they're going to start taking those over next month because it's more a clerical operation to get those reports done, and it's just a matter of compiling data from different sources, then you send the form in. And so basically they're going to take that over. The only stipulation is that person is the quote-unquote safety reporting official for the railroad. So should we ever have an accident or injury, there's specific requirements that we need to respond either immediately by calling the 800 number or immediately follow up with a report. Knock on wood, we've only had one of those in the last 10 years of operation. And we worked with Tom jointly to get those reports taken into the FRA. Lineham Road crossing signal, again, Gabe ordered that arm 3 months ago, I think it was, and it didn't come from China, but it might as well have. The supply chain was terrible getting it here. So that's all taken care of. Still working on this little dust issue. And in conclusion, basically, we're not a high-speed operation, and we put on some slow orders, mainly to get people to pay attention at certain locations. One of them's over the Overman Pit. The other one's over at milepost 15-3, which is the transition between the Phase 1 construction, the Phase 2 construction. The one at the Chinese wall, the 5 mile an hour, that's sort of that's a pucker factor, slow order. There's nothing wrong with the track there, but when you look over there, you go, oh my gosh, if we went off in that location, we would fall all the way to the bottom. And Amadei actually owns that property. He doesn't want cars down the bottom of his canyon there. And all switches are limited to 10 miles per hour. So I'm pretty sure that Tom has got these slow order information and will get it out to his crew, but we'll go from there. Anyway, with that being said, that's all I've got, unless you have some more for me. So.
No, thank you, Ken, for that thorough report. I really appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions for Ken on any of these items that he went through? Okay, thank you, Ken. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, with that, let's go ahead and move on to 13D. Our next meeting will be September 23rd, which is a Thursday again, at 1 p.m. So mark that on your calendars, everybody. We'll go ahead and move on to 14, Commissioner comments or announcements and requests for information. Does anybody have a comment or anything they would like to say? No? No? Denny?
Just one thing, you guys hold down the fort this weekend, have a good time. Unfortunately, I can't make it. I will be out in the Nevada desert, hopefully where there's no smoke, but on a little antelope hunt. But anyway, it's awesome to see the 18 up and running. Virginia City is very excited to have the train come back. Merchants are talking about it, so bring them up.
Maybe we'll take a picture for you.
Yeah, I'll see a picture too.
Maybe.
And I don't know if, speaking of picture, I didn't save one, but I don't know what it's already been out there on social media, but Tom's, the V&T got a piece of equipment or two back in Virginia City.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody saw that, but
Yeah.
the original steam engine, the Reno, is now back in Virginia City and came in yesterday. I actually went around the corner. I was heading down to the fairgrounds, and the road was blocked. I'm like, all right, what are you guys doing? And they okay, yeah, I know it's blocked because there's a huge crane and an engine getting offloaded. And it was awesome. I think he's got a car or two too. So
It looked,
Yep.
The Reno looked really cool.
it's cool
Yeah,
looking.
from the
It is.
picture,
It is
yeah.
super cool.
Yeah. Sure. What the heck? Go for it. Maybe. Yes. Are you connected back in? Oh, there you go. Yep. Definitely a very different looking locomotive. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody see that okay? Okay. Yeah. No, well, we'll miss you. We're going to do our best. So, yeah, Jim's at the controls, so this should be exciting with Stephanie helping. So she's running the rigging on the trailsman brake or whatever. So, all right. Well, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to 15 public comment. At this time, the public is invited to comment on any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Again, no action may be taken on any matter raised under this item of the agenda. Any public comment in the room? I do not see any. Any public comment on the phone line?
There are no callers on the line at this time.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 16 for possible action. Could I get a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Jim. We're adjourned. Thank you.